Yo, ladies and gentlemen, what's up? I'm you, and you're me, or something like that. And today, we'll be working on Keltar. I have the tutorial page up because I forgot to change to the Keltar page. Not because of any other reason. But I might as well say that we have some more documentation on this. So if you want to read up on the tutorial and reverse engineer what you think the plot will be, then check it out, yeah. Cool. Good. Next. So we don't actually have any units for the Keltar yet. You might have noticed that now that I'm actually on the page that I was supposed to be on. But we do have some tech branches. And in fact, I've even documented what those branches are in terms of what they actually subsist of. So if we take a look at my program, don't look at this is a spoiler. If we jump over to, where are they? Keltar. Here we go. We got Bloodline, Ironclad, and Warwing. Now, all these are basically, like, more or less, they are, you could say, segregated into distinct categories that are kind of similar to the NCFI, where you got infantry, vehicles, and aircraft. But some Keltar infantry, things that you would look at and think, oh, that's infantry, will actually be present in Ironclad. I don't know if the inverse will be true, where some non-infantry will be in the Bloodline branch, but those are the basic ideas that we're working with and operating with. So, yeah. And obviously, pretty soon-ish, maybe, in the next week or so, probably before the end of the month, we'll actually have the automatic generation of web pages done for all of these things, which actually means, believe it or not, that what we get to do is implement, at least in terms of data, we might not have the graphics yet, obviously, all of these units that we're conceptualizing. So, for example, all these ANSIFI units and structures will actually have data entries in the game that are then used to generate the web page files that you see here. And this will have a number of really positive effects overall, mostly that we don't need to worry nearly as much about how long it takes to load a web page. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal now, but if I were to like control F5, it's a little bit, it's maybe like 0.75 seconds if I had to guess, right? Maybe even a full second. And that just won't be the case. It'll be much snappier, even on slower machines and slower browsers than what I'm using. So it'll be pretty nice because basically it won't need to be automatically, or it won't need to be generated at runtime, which is what we currently have. So yeah, very much looking forward to all that stuff. So with that being said, suppose we can get into the Keltar stuff. It's always a little bit of a challenge to jump into starting a new regency. However, considering I don't have that many in the way of like assets or whatever to use, we'll probably just be using like Protoss structures and units and stuff from Cosmonic Brood War and from Vanilla Protoss for our initial work, and we'll eventually repopulate those later on. So, what's up, James? I wouldn't be surprised if it was mostly remakes. I think I saw something about the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic thing. I don't know, man. Seems a little goofy to me. All right. So, as is pretty customary here, I will go ahead and grab the ANSIFI worker, the apprentice. It's somewhere here. And we will start our quest. The quest for you. You. Completely unrelated, I swear. And we'll say race Keltar. We'll figure out the vitals and all this other junk later. Successor, we don't have one yet. Suppose I could just leave that as a blank field, right? Because it will have a successor eventually. And it's created by Keltar. We'll figure out what that name is. And we know that it will create Keltar. Okay. Now we have something. I don't know if this guy will have repair or not. What I like to use for what I like to use the worker for, I've realized this with the Psychora, is that they work really well as like little showcases for all of the Psychora and like all of the passives until we have a specific section for Regency-specific passives that are, like, applying to all units and stuff, or many units, I guess you could say. So these are sort of like global traits or whatever. So for now, we'll actually use that. And this is, I know there's Keltar, and then there's, I forget what the ability was called. I remembered it was Blood Heritage, but I couldn't remember if it was prefixed that way, which is how I do all the other ones. So I'm glad that I was consistent there. So for those who are not aware, Keltar Blood Heritage is basically the shield mechanic that I talked about in the actual planning of the Regency. We can actually navigate over here so that we are in a good position. But let's see. I don't know if the... yes, okay, here it is. So, armed with a variety of melee and short-ranged weaponry, the warriors of Keltarak build up a veritable bloodlust as their skirmishes rage on, eventually giving into a primal frenzy that pushes their bodies beyond worldly limits. So that's obviously referencing the idea that they can sustain themselves for longer the more they remain in combat. Although it also alludes to a mechanic I was playing around with mentally, which would be that after a certain amount of time of, like, staying above... of maintaining their shield. It could be something like if they maintain their shield for longer than 2 seconds, they hit like they start benefiting like the longer the shield persists, which could be pretty interesting. But I imagine it would have to be local. If it was a global mechanic, I think it would morph too many of the engagements with Keltar. Whereas if it was like a specific to some elite units or some expensive units, you could imagine a Keltar melee unit that is able to attack faster if it can, if its shield holds for longer than 2 seconds, it starts to build up attack speed, something like that. And then when its shield drops, that's when all of the stacks disappear. Something like that could work. I could imagine some sort of thing like that. Currently, there's no gate as to like how the shield steal thing works. Or it's not really shield steal as much as it is they gain a point of shields for every point of damage. And when they're out of combat for 2 seconds, that actually rapidly decays. So you have to keep that in mind as you're sort of using the unit. So now the other thing that's always a curious sort of question to me is figuring out what we'll be doing with workers and how disparate, how distinct certain workers will be from other workers. Because I get the idea that some of them will be moving slowly or quickly, depending on which one you're comparing it to. I get the idea that some of them will obviously have ranged attacks, which will then translate to ranged mining, while most of them will probably be melee. That'll be the de facto like standard, where maybe we could say like more than 10 have that. So it'd be like 12 or 13 minimum. So the overwhelming majority of regencies will have starting workers that are melee, which means the Keltar probably should be in with that. I mean, their whole thing is melee, so it makes sense that they would even their worker would be in melee. So anyway, the thing I'm sort of going down with this line of logic is like, at what point do I start increasing or decreasing the resource cost? Do I ever change the resource and time costs of the base worker? Because I'm already changing a bunch of other stuff. I'm changing things like movement speed. I'm changing things like range. And I don't believe I made the Sinari, or Sinari, however I end up pronouncing it. Probably Sinari, to be honest. Yeah, I didn't change the Sinari's cost at all, which is kind of curious because the Sinari don't actually build the structures like other workers do. It's the main structure that does that. So it's kind of curious to me that I decided to make it stable even here. I'm not sure if that's something that I was thinking about when I was putting the unit together. I think I did at some point forget, because I remember for a very brief time the Sinari actually had the list of buildings as a thing that it created, and then I remembered, oh yeah, they're actually supposed to get it from the structures, which is why it pays to actually have your documentation up on another tab that you can look at. But yeah, so these are some of the things that I'm starting to think about is like, do we want to be deviant in terms of like, do we want to diverge from the existing path from the get-go, or do we just want the Keltar to be like, because I kind of imagine the Keltar and the Ensifi could have similar traits where they move slowly, slower than other workers, but they can bring more resources back per return or something like that. Or maybe they have to spend less time mining overall because they, with each like mining session that they do, they get a higher percentage of their cap. So if you can only return, we'll say 10 resources per return is probably where we'll go instead of 8. It'll either be 5 or 8. It'll either be 5 or 10. I like the clean increments. So resource harvesting will be one of those things where, like, if you guys know about the lumber harvesting in Warcraft 3, and probably in the other Warcraft games too, but I don't remember. Obviously, every time a worker would attack a tree, it would harvest a certain set amount of lumber. And most of the time it was 1. Obviously, wisps didn't even interact with the system because gimmick. And then ghouls did 2. So they only had to... and they could also carry more. So they still attacked it, or they got the same amount, but the lumber return, or the lumber harvested per hit was 2, and lumber overall net return was 20, which is something you had to upgrade for peasants and something that was static for peons. So, and again, this is all from memory. I'm pretty sure this is all correct though. So the main idea here is, do we want to do a system similar to that where like the unit actually does have to basically like attack or channel its attack onto the resource, and that will add to its inventory? Would that be cleaner than a channel and then it's done? I'm not 100% sure that it would. I kind of like the channel from Brood War, where they're just channeling for a while, and so you don't get partial returns or partial harvests, unless there was like nothing left in the resource node, obviously. So I'm kind of thinking that like you would get the channel, so it wouldn't be like Warcraft 3, but the aspect from Warcraft 3 that we could take is like having a set stat for resource capacity. So it'd be like, this worker can carry, 10 resources, and another worker might be able to only carry 5 because they're like thinner, but they move faster. So that's kind of like easing it up. And the other thing that we could obviously do is make mining time, harvesting time, a trait of a weapon perhaps, or a trait of just a unit probably, I guess. And the idea there is that, so maybe this unit harvests the resources faster, needs to spend less time actually harvesting the resource before they start walking back. So this would all like change how long the interactions are between workers and resources, and I guess how frequently they are. If it's like this one can sit here for longer because he's got a bigger, he can return more. I think at least the harvesting time should probably be a stat. That's my initial thought anyway, is like the harvesting time itself could probably be a per unit stat, and it would be mostly consistent, where I would say, I think it's like, if I had to, I'll like manually estimate the time here, although nothing is like a flat value in Brood War, but if we think about this, this is like, looks like about 4 seconds. So something like that might be the case. So say like the default mining time is 3 or 4 seconds, and then like the Ansifi and Keltar ones do it like 1 second less. That would actually be pretty good, because even though they're moving slower than the other Regency workers, the other basic workers of the other Regencies, they're able to spend less time doing that. So as long as like the difference between how long it takes them to reach the resource node so I guess the net amount of time spent walking between node and return point, as long as that is less than a second compared to less than a second of difference compared to another worker, they're actually getting a benefit. And if it's equal to or roughly equal to that, then it's basically a wash. It's negligible. And so it would still maintain some element of balance. This is something that we'll have to experiment with a lot. And we'll basically just, I think the most of the way that we'll end up handling this is after we get good pathfinding implementation done. My process for this will be literally setting up a map where I pick my Regency, and then I harvest from the same resource node with the same number of workers for like a minute, and then look at how many resources I got, and write that number down, and then do the same thing for all the other Regencies that I have. And if one of them is like massively different, or even remotely different, that would be cause for further investigation. Because anything could be affecting that. It could be all these stats that we're talking about, or it could be like collision, and because the collision is bigger on one worker, they have to like move around each other more, and maybe the pathfinding needs to be tweaked as a result of that. Or if it's not something that can be rectified with an engine thing, it would just have to result in some stat changes on the worker side. But this is all possible. Like, it's possible to get comparable output numbers that won't lead to some wacky like resource inaccuracies or whatever that would like massively change the game. I mean, even Brood War has these resource inaccuracies between races, so clearly that didn't stop some people from playing the disadvantaged races. Yeah, there could be an automated unit test map that basically has one AI player for each regency, and they all harvest resources like the same. Well, I would want to make sure that it's exactly identical. And if you know about like obviously Brood War maps, the regions are not isolated. So like I guess it would definitely be doable. It's just like I would want to rule out like, oh, the pathfinding works differently in this area because it's like in the middle of the map as opposed to the left of the map, and something is fucking with it. But I imagine if it's just a flat map, it should be fine. But I don't know. Because obviously pathfinding would also take into account units, but it should only take into account nearby units. But yeah, so we could have an automated test case where we have like a little leaderboard in the top left somewhere, and it shows us how many resources the player. I guess if there's like observer UI, this would happen anyway. So we would see resource quotas, and we would like let the game run for 1 minute, and each player would be a different player, or each regency would be controlled by a different player, and so you'd see all 6 of them, and then after a minute, you would like take a look at what the resources were, and you'd be like, oh, okay, here's how it looks. So yeah, that sort of automated test would be super useful, and would mean that we would like be able to make a change and then quickly retest it and stuff. So yeah, should be appropriately epic. IMO. Oh, I guess I should move this over here. Okay, so if we go back to the Keltar for a moment, we were working on the worker. I think once again we'll keep the resource cost and the time cost the same. We did have the idea of basically having a stat called mining time. I don't know if it would be I guess it would make sense to be a unit stat, and it would only actually do anything if the flag included worker. But it's not really that big of a deal. Or I guess harvester. Worker is fine for harvester. There shouldn't need to be any hand-holding for stuff like you need the worker flag to build a building, obviously, because structures would then be ineligible unless they also had the worker flag, which would be goofy. So yeah, mining time would need to be a stat, and it would be in seconds, a fractional, a value that's possible to be fractional, so not an int, so I guess it would be float or whatever. And then we could do something like that. So we would do like mining time 3. And then if we look through the other ones, so again, I estimate that 4 is the amount of time, roughly 4 seconds is the Brood War default time. So for giving these guys faster ones, and I would also give the apprentice a faster one as well, because it's also slow, the same speed. We could then go in and see there's architect. We could make this one faster. The mason would be the same. Mining time 3. And I guess we can drop the resource cost a bit, since all this guy has is salvage, right? So actually we could drop this and just make it 100 megmite. And then the architect, oh yeah, the architect was actually supposed to be the one that cost this much, I think. Although it has build speed too. I think I'll give it 100, because it also mines faster. Okay, so now we can jump into Ember Seat. And we can find our Otini worker, which is the handle. Here it is. We do mining time 4. And I know that the timepiece, that's the really R1. Could also be 4. This one has a ranged weapon, so there is that. And I think it was the Araketh was the worker for the Ascosi. Mining time. This one moves faster, but so we'll leave it at 4. Because he moves faster than the other workers do. So. I actually did have a career in casting. It was in CS:GO. I still do it from time to time. But League of Legends is just not a very fun game, right? So I lost interest. To be honest, I kind of lost interest in CS:GO, to be honest. Like, after thinking about what a better FPS I would want to make and play, like, much rather do that, to be honest. So we look at the Sinary mining time 4. And there we go. I think we've done it. And hey, check this out, guys. We can do this move. Pulse sight. I pranked myself. Get pull. Get pull with 2 L's. Third time is the charm. Okay, try that again. And... Huh! Ah, there's a man with no name. But we can also check out the Sinary and see that its stat doesn't show up because it doesn't have an entry on the site yet. But at least it didn't break. Okay, so now we know. We've got our shit, and we were able to automatically deploy to the site, which is epic. Also, I think the videos you're referring to pay like all of the. I think I probably maybe got like a conservative estimate would be 150K views. That gave me like $250 or something. It was not very good money. I would have had to keep going for a very long time and also get significantly more popular. Like the ad revenue that you get from YouTube is nothing. It did pay for like a couple of things, or at least a thing. I think it extended my my time chilling for a little bit. But then I was like, well, I don't want to edit this game. It's gross. Because that was also like coincidentally around the time that I just stopped playing the game. So. All right. We've got our worker. We need a name for him. I shall consult my name list. I haven't actually thought about too many of the naming conventions I want for the Keltar. I think I've probably teased it a little bit with these branches. But I'm pretty pleased with the idea of really laying it on about the sort of combative nature of the Keltar. And so I was thinking about like, oh, okay, here we go. We'll call him the Backbone. That's an epic name, to be honest. I actually think he might be right about the... Like, every creator I know has a Patreon. I don't know anybody who's got an OnlyFans. Maybe they're hiding it from me. I also like how... I guess I shouldn't really be surprised about this, but like the quote unquote progressives out there, were the ones who were like talking about like when OnlyFans was like saying that they weren't going to allow like like super weird fetish content that's like illegal fetish content, basically like stuff that's actually illegal, like bestiality or whatever. I don't know if they repealed that part, but I know they were going to ease up on some of the restrictions they planned for. And this is, by the way, people completely missed the idea. The reason why OnlyFans did this is actually because they were going to get owned, and probably are still going to get owned, by payment providers like Stripe, and I think PayPal probably already fucked them. I think they use, is it Stripe or Stride? I think Stride is the gum. I think it's Stripe for because it makes sense for this, the little black stripe of the credit card. So yeah, their card providers are the ones who like we're just going to own them because they don't like. They view the like pornography and similar things as high risk enterprises, so they don't like processing transactions for them. Which I'm actually not really sure what the point is. I vaguely recall some Obama era stuff where they were trying to like annihilate some sex workers on the internet or something. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get at here is that they seem to have absolutely. Like, they've tried to capitulate to the looming regulation that is going to come in. It's not really regulation in the government sense, but it's like automatic responses to their site getting so popular. I think it's really funny that the whole, like all those people, the think pieces, the epic takes were always like, oh man, I've got to think about how I'm going to get by as a sex worker now. It's like, I really don't want to say anything too mean, lady, but or guy. I don't know any guy sex workers. But what the fuck? Like, there are other jobs. That may make me sound like I'm hashtag learn to coding you or something. But come the fuck on, like surely this is not what you need. So yeah, I don't know. Pretty funny stuff. Pretty confusing stuff. It's like at some point you wake up and you realize like, wait, the people who are like saying that I'm supposed to be represented by them are the ones, like politically, are the ones who are like saying that OnlyFans is bad for changing their regulations to be more in line with what the original message of the website was supposed to be about, and also what the payment processors are going to force them to do. And they're saying that they're bad because they're not allowing like they're not facilitating additional propagations of porn addictions and other psychic maladies. I think maybe I'll just become apolitical, actually. Speaking of Revenge of the U, what's up, Rollerskate? Check out my only worker ever with armor. My only tier 1 worker with armor. Check him out. I give him 50 health, actually. This'll be big. Ah, you've been keeping track of the what do you call it? The scheduling. Yeah, dude. Veek streams on YouTube only, but he's also streaming. He was streaming very late yesterday. Fucking lunatic. Him and I were on for, well, he was on an hour before I joined. I joined an hour into his stream, but we went for 7 hours and 15 minutes. Just doing like web development stuff and automatic generation of web pages via the engine. So it was pretty good. And I just did a bunch of ports. Also, you'll probably, I actually, because you haven't joined the server yet, you haven't been made privy to all the details about a video that I'm doing, but I think maybe I've sort of like talked about it here and there on the streams. I'm doing this video. It's basically a very long form, it'll probably be like 2.5 hours long or so, takedown of custom campaigns and what they get wrong and how they should stop looking to Blizzard for inspiration and so on. That's coming along pretty well. But the reason why I was going to throw it in there at you as a topic is that if you have thoughts about this subject, you might like to share them at some point. Well, I don't know what you mean about again. I mean, I've done clips and stuff, but they haven't been targeted at any one thing. Besides the one that was laughing at StarCraft 2 apologists. That was fun. Oh, and Restream owned you because it doesn't allow me to see repeat messages, noob. Yeah. So it changed the context of your entire life for a brief moment. I do want to put like a lot of the infrastructure names for the Keltar. I actually want to synchronize around the idea of like bone and like the backbone is really funny to me because it's like talks about like, oh, you got no backbone, like you got no conviction, but it's also like obviously literally what it supports people. So my man. So wait, are they remastering God of War 2? Is that what it is? I don't know what you're talking about, roller skates. Some guy released a half-baked, barely functional 7-map campaign that he said was 6 maps, and some other guy is translating his Spanish to English and uploading each map as an individual file. And some other guy's remaking the campaign for a millionth time. And then some other guy made a campaign on Windows 98 and is 40 years old and Italian. So StarCraft is actually entering into a mini golden age of custom content. And I'm Chris. That's a Chris quote. That's a real thing, by the way. You can go look that up. I don't know where you'll find it. But, I mean, I know where you'll find it, actually. I haven't even gotten to that part of the video yet. I'm actually mad. Because I was just screen capping every forum post in existence earlier today. It takes so long to edit those sections. Yeah, you'll be put face to face with a lot of that content in this video. If you watched Mesk's video on Chris, then it's like that, but actually edited and way more in depth about, or like I guess way more constructed. Where Mesk was like obviously he just rants about stuff. Oh, it's a new God of War. Oh, it must be a sequel to that lame shit one where they made it into an RPG. That's unfortunate. I kind of wanted to forget about that one, to be honest. It sounds like Risk or something. Dude, Udally is actually a place in one of my maps. In my defense, the first mission... Oh, yeah, the first mission's turn. The second mission's turn. The third mission is user select. And the fourth mission is turn. I forgot about that. I guess you've made sure that I'm going to pivot away from that for the subsequent missions. Well, I already know, like, I'm pretty sure the other two will be Zerg and Protoss, yeah, so... Or maybe they'll also be user select, I haven't decided yet. Maybe one will be user select and the other one will be... not. Really depends. It's actually pretty fun to play Terran if you, like, plan your angle. I never do that, so I always get owned. But if you do that, it's pretty good. Yeah, exactly. At some point, I'll come up with a different name for this probably, but for now, we have something. So, check this out. Ah! Owned. Instant. Compared to what I normally have to deal with. I do like the number of people who join the Discord server and then leave immediately. Appropriate. They probably see, like, misgendering somebody and immediately get angry or something. I wouldn't be surprised anyway. Actually, shout out to the Oracle who joined the Discord server yesterday and made me laugh for about 10 minutes. Nothing, I'm not laughing at him in this case. It's just funny. Because he had commented on my review for Legacy of the Confederation, and I was like, oh shit, I hope he's not butthurt. Because, like, it wasn't a very positive review, obviously, because it's a StarCraft custom campaign. But, then he joined the server. And I was just like, oh shit. This is either going to go really poorly or very smoothly. Yeah. I guess he got busy with a career and then he moved back in recently. He's actually trying to resurrect his project in StarCraft 2. And it was more than 5 years, but yeah. He's trying to go back to StarCraft 2 for it. If he had come back a year later, he could have just used Anti-Cathera, but you know. Okay. So, we're doing some more stuff. We got to make some more buildings. Ah, exactly 5 years. Holy shit. Listen, homie. You probably forgot who the other birthday present recipient was. Let's just say there will be a lot of plants. If I was burning every plant in Gotham, I would have to you'd have to control like Ahmed army and fight Protoss because Protoss are plants. So just saying. Oh wait, no, that's not what it was doing. I don't know if I want to do Songbook for Keltar or for... I think I'll do Songbook for Githrovin, actually. Leak that one at you. Have I ever been misgendered? I think maybe when I was younger, because I didn't have all the facial hair, but I still had the long hair. So some people would be like... So usually like kids who don't know that, like at least guys with long hair was less common when I actually had long hair for the first time when I was like 16 or whatever. So yeah, probably. But I was just like, haha, and then moved on. Probably because gender isn't like an enormous fucking big deal. Almost like I can speak from that privilege. Oh shit, yeah, you're right. That's what I should have done. So we've got our themes, obviously. So there's like familial stuff mixed with blood. Those are the naming conventions for bloodline, obviously. Infrastructure is like bones and stuff, and like supports actual infrastructure. Ironclad is like, you know, metal stuff. It's vehicles and whatnot, so that would make sense. And then War Wing is, you know, it's all about space and shit. Oh yeah, this one is like, it's pretty steep. It'll be pretty large, and it's also like almost impossible to kill in the early game. So I guess trophy room would probably be like, oh yeah, actually I think that's probably fine now that I think about it. I would like something other than trophy room. But yeah, something about trophies, something about like emblems or whatever. That could be interesting. We'll just leave it as arena for now. It's pretty generic, but we'll come back to it. Yeah, different costs of town centers is a big one. Different costs of, I was just talking before you joined about how workers are going to have different mining times. So this is like how long it takes in seconds to get a return. Since I decided I would be going for channeled harvesting, I don't really like the Warcraft 3 style of like partial harvesting where it like fills up or whatever. I feel like it's too messy, basically. I think the binary of like, have you finished it or have you not is better. But the mining time being different between the workers is going to help me balance out those resource returns where I don't have to worry about like, oh, the worker has to, what do you call it? This worker moves faster than the other worker, but if that happens, then they're just like instantly better. I didn't want that to be the case. So with the Keltar and the Ensifi workers moving the slowest out of the currently planned ones for tier 1, then their mining time is going to be lower. The exception, I believe, is for the Otini droids for the Ember Seat, or if I look at those, it's the handle. If I go to the handle, it's 4 and its mining time is 4. I think the difference here is that they'll probably just end up costing less money, which will be their own return for like not like they'll, yeah. I think what I'll do here is I'll actually make them cost 25 Magmite, but only have like 30 life and I guess 0 armor. So they'll be like incredibly easy to snipe. They'll still take the same amount of time, but you'll be building a ton of strong boxes for other units anyway, at least a couple extra strong boxes. You'll be building strong boxes the same way Protoss builds forges in Cosmonarchy Brood War, where you're building it for like other utility units and stuff. So I think that's totally fine, actually. I was playing around with Stadium for an Ansifi unit a while ago, I think. But, or a structure. I think something like, obviously the thing you would want is like, what's the thing that the gladiators fought in? I know it was technically an arena. Gladiators fight in what? What are they called? Coliseum, yeah. Well, my browser tabs just don't even load anymore, unfortunately. Oh yeah, I actually saw a cinematic trailer for that, and I was pretty impressed at how little they tried for some of the particles. But I didn't see any in-game footage. Pleasure Dome. Now you're speaking my language. Talk about OnlyFans. OnlyFans allowed in. A Thunderdome, actually. I guess Coliseum, is it actually a specific structure, or is Coliseum something where it could be like considered any sort of construction? I can't believe I have to load up a different browser in order to search. It is the Coliseum, but if I look at disambiguation, what do I get? I like how they just have a bunch of them spelled differently. Maybe that's the term. Maybe that's how you spell it if you're just... The fuck? Yeah, I already have Arena as a name. Okay, Coliseum is the unspecific version. Well, that's what I'm assuming. If we look for Coliseum. The Romans trademarked Colosseum the other way, so... What the fuck? Alright, well, I guess I can write it down as a... Whack. Anyway, I was looking for some sort of, like, geometric shape. Like, specifically, like, a structure that was designed for fighting and stuff. I can't remember. There's some other stuff there too that was like, I remember thinking about it like a specific area. There's like a term for an area where you're training with swords, and it's not called fencing class, but it's something like that. And then there's the quartermaster, which I think had something to do with quartermaster. It looks like it's just a senior soldier that handles provisions. So actually, a quartermaster could be like a military rank or military a name for like an Ansifi structure or something. Although it is a bit generic. But I wrote it down anyway. So it's not really related to what we're doing right now. I still can't believe Razor Wind was a real fucking thing. It came out of Metzen's mouth. Oh yeah, there was that was the other thing. Henge was something that I wanted to use somewhere. Not sure if wind being prepended is really all that useful here, but I think I'll use it for that. And I was thinking of something that like processes metal for the ironclad production facility. Not 100% sure what it would be though. Because it's obviously like smithy, anvil, which I'm using as a weapon name elsewhere. Oh no, I'm using it as a unit name elsewhere. I can't use that for sure then. There's like shed, I guess. I don't know. Look up synonyms to workbench. Power thesaurus. That's powerful. No, this is looking pretty good so far, isn't it? Yeah, a lot of useful ones here. Laboratory is one that I didn't think about. Oh, yeah, this is a good one. As a bench, actually. Nice. Very useful. Back to thesaurus.com. Also not very useful here either. Because I can use something like easel or something that's a little bit more like, what do you call it? You know, flowery and artistic, you know? I can use that for the Githrovan because they're all about grace. These guys just want to beat your face in. So I kind of want to encompass that when I'm designing a lot of their names. At least hint at it. Like if they're constructing a henge, like these motherfuckers are using stone or something that looks like stone, and that's how they produce their spacecraft. Like, they are probably going to club my face in caveman style if I go near them. That's the kind of vibe I want to give. We'll use edifice for now. I suppose I'll go into the gallery. Copy that for this. Arena. Keltar. Bloodline. Production. Oh yeah, I was supposed to slap weight onto the unit over here. These guys are going to be pretty interesting in the early game, I think, without how expensive their structures are. I like it, though. It's pretty cool. Okay. We'll go ahead and check how that works. Obviously, there's no file that for them to reference, so it might break something else. But oh yeah, obviously, need to move this to category 3 and then give it a smooch frame and all this other stuff. I too agree that large table should be a unit. I was supposed to eat on this table, but this table eating me. Who the fuck let this table into my house? All right, see, that didn't take too long, did it? Yes, it did, but that's okay. I think that was just Canada attacking, to be honest. Oh, that's what you mean. I thought you meant that he got like annihilated by a surprise rug attack. Well, it's just taking the concept of like a mimic and applying it to everything. Why not? Come on, homie. Live a little. Actually, one of my other friends, Kian, was talking about running a D&D campaign set in Xibalba. He's got more experience doing that more recently than I do, but I ran a bunch when I was a wee lad. So I have a little bit of understanding of what's going on there. Pretty mimic planets. Yeah, that's the thing, is Evolva like shit's in a completely different position, isn't it? I just like the thought of, I mean, I don't think this is how we'll actually present them, but I do like the idea that you're mining like from a base, like you start setting up a base, and then like the terrain that you're building on just like rises up and starts munching on your structure as it's being built. Like, what the fuck? It's insane. I mean, yeah, our engine is actually designed pretty well for something like that. So if we wanted to do something where you have the same sort of approach, like we wouldn't need another client like Roll20 or whatever, because we would just like basically we would need to make some modifications to the engine itself, but then it could just be whatever we wanted it to be. So we wouldn't need a like an external client or anything if we really wanted to run pen and paper style games. Like we would need some way to allow a host to play music and stuff like that, but that wouldn't really be that difficult, I imagine. You'd need to be able to stream or maybe not stream, but like send the files from the host to the other clients that are connected when they're added. So that if he adds like a new file on the fly or whatever, then they can download it whenever. But that wouldn't be too difficult, I don't think. Well, I guess mining time might just be a factor of the. No, I don't know. The weapon cooldown probably should be separated from mining time just for balancing reasons. Never mind. Coming up with a lot of names here, boys. So picky about pronunciations. All right. Do I have any good tank icons? I feel like I really only have like 3. Because 3. Guess we'll just reuse that one. This thing's stats may be busted. Maybe. We'll find out. Let's pull these units. See where we go. I'm pretty sure I fixed that already. There we go. Okay. Obviously, I need to change the icons for these weapons. That's good. Get the cannon. Don't know if I'll make a separate suffix for railguns. I think it's probably fine to also group them in with cannons. All right. We should be good there. Starting to take shape over here, boys. We already got 4 units and 4 structures from nothing in an hour and 18 minutes with all my blabbing. Well, I've got to plan some more, and I already have their names, which means I already know exactly what they do because that's exactly how I work, because I'm a weirdo. That used by field doesn't do anything. Epic. Just reminded myself to, I guess I can delete that too, to message DF about that since he was asking about it earlier. Anything movement speed related has to use leg enhancements, SMH. Although I guess I could use the anabolic synthesis icon now that I think about it. Oh, I didn't rename it or give it a new icon, SMH. I can't remember. Actually, I can do this here. I know I used Iron Garden. That was it, okay. I know there was also Steel Wheel. I'll probably change Iron Garden at some other point so I can keep the iron prefix for pretty unique to the Keltar. But that's alright. I did quite like the imagery of Iron Garden. I'll find some other cool thing though. There can be only you. Oh wait, before I do that, do this. You. Oh, this is the wrong one. There you Probably help if I gave him a weapon too. Oh, I owned myself, apparently. The Windhenge should be in 3, and the Edifice should be in 2. That's a good prank. Uh-huh. Good one. Good one, me. Actually, I guess this makes more sense the other way around, but whatever. There's that money. There it is. Found the money. Okay. Oh, and okay, I guess enabled by actually does need to be there. You set enabled by abilities to optional. Okay. Where were we going from there? Oh yeah, I was gonna go fix this, but editing that. Okay. I guess the other thing that I owned myself with was I put the wrong icon on the wrong thing. So this is supposed to be the wind henge, and that's supposed to be the edifice. So, prank. I am known to prank myself sometimes. Okay. Now we obviously need to plug in another unit. Another unit. You. Barrel Lord sounds pretty suggestive. Alright, we can't call him Barrel Lord, that's too funny. Yo, 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 Shambleman! Check out my new tech tree I'm building right now as we speak. Oh, I guess I have the wrong... Iron Path is still called Frontal Armor. Should be... Basic Walker. I guess we could even say Armored Infantry. Actually, we'll need to take a look at the... was it the motive that shot missiles? Yeah. Their speed was pretty low. I think we'll probably do 14 for the speed. And then I'll jump into the NCFI. Oh, that's not what I wanted. The NCFI weapons. If I find the motive missile, I can set speed to 14. That was supposed to be a slower missile. Magnetar missile. And I think that's it for missiles. Actually, I don't think it even needs a passive. I think the weapon gives it enough uniqueness. Well, if we keep this up, we might actually be able to bang out a couple more units and finish up first draft of Tier 1. Though obviously we will need some static defense and whatnot, but that's alright. I'm also guessing that the Skin Dagger and Banner Hand will be moved down to Tier 2 along with the Storm Chief and maybe one of the Warwing units. And you'll unlock those with some sort of like tech structure or something. But I'm not 100% sure yet. I think it'll depend on what I really want to do there with their progression. This is mostly to get a feel for what each branch is going to be capable of, and I really like the expensive but slow and powerful units that they have right now. They do that in a way that even Protoss didn't do in Brood War, where obviously Protoss had the expensive units, but a lot of the expense came from gas. A lot of the expense came from like Vespene gas costs and like tech costs. The individual units rarely costed that many minerals, unless you're talking about like air units, I guess, where the Scout obviously costed a lot of money, and the Carrier. But if you think about like the Arbiter, and if you think about High Templar, and then in turn Archons, the gas cost was the steep thing there. And even with Dark Templar and thus Dark Archons, they were even in costs with minerals and gas. So that was obviously something that contributed towards it. These guys are very predominantly Magmite heavy in the early game. So much so that I think the most expensive unit in terms of gas cost is the Storm Chief. And it only has 75 Hypervials. The Iron Path and Overturn are both Magmite only. The Banner Hand is 50 Hypervials. The Skin Dagger is 25. And the other two units are 75 Magmite. There will probably be a Magmite only Windhenge unit, a basic fighter of some kind, as well as like a transport, and then maybe the transport might be light Magmite or a light Hypervial cost, and then like there'll be some sort of missile boat or something probably, or a gunboat. So yeah, definitely shaping up to feel very distinct, I think, which is nice. Huh. I don't know about that one. Thinking about how I want to refer to the last unit here. I don't even think even step works massively, but I like the name for something else, so go ahead and jot it down for future use. I'm trying to remember one of the older things. I'll probably change that name later. It's not my kind of name, actually. You. You. Pretty sure other people in this stream are very confused right now. Especially if they weren't actually paying attention to chat. You ASMR by me. For you. Yeah, I don't think you get to say that. That's pretty sure that's illegal, actually. What's up, Alexander? Hell yes. I do all of my streams standing up. I think the previous stream, I did set it down after like 2 hours or something, but I don't remember. How long have I been going now? We're almost at the 2-hour mark. I've actually I stand up most of the day these days, believe it or not. But this isn't really programming. I'm mostly coming up with concepts for RTS units. I just happen to be using Visual Studio Code to do it, much to my chagrin. I need to find the epic icon. There it is. I guess this is a railgun too, isn't it? So we'll have to say... I'll give it some placeholder name for now. Just like the other railgun I named earlier. Okay. For this, I will use the Magnetar as an example. So it had 8 range, and it had... I forgot I made it 25 armor pen. That's pretty funny. That was only a 1 second cooldown. Is that real? If I go back to the Centaur, which is what that unit is based off of. Oh, okay. Well, it is a tier 7 unit, I guess, in that case. So that makes sense. Sure. That'll have to do, I think. Then I guess we'll just copy this and make a laser. I think it was blaster. But it will be a laser. And I just need a new icon, and then we are good to pull this unit too. I guess bounces should also be added here as a field. Don't know about that one. I'm not adding a bounce to this, but I did consider it for a moment. Where are the lasers at? I was just looking at these icons a second ago. There they are. They vanish into a sea of similar looking things very easily. There you go. We got our drum beat, which for some reason is... I forgot to update the unit. That is the reason. Oh, that's not it. Drum beat. Wind henge, my man. And then the Patriarch is also wind henge. Okay, try that again. So this is a transport, and it also gives them more shield generation when they are within a range of it. And we get the Patriarch. That's right. The first air unit that the Keltar have access to is a cruiser. They don't know what a fighter is. Sorry. In fact, I should probably set the drumbeat to also be in the cruiser plane, now that I think about it. Everything that they have is large. They're large men. And this will also be a cruiser, but we'll say... expansive... Well, we could say... call this one an area denial gunboat, which sounds eerily similar to something I've already notated elsewhere. Oh, wait, no, that's fine, I think. Yeah, that's fine. This is Despot, so I should change this name accordingly. This will be another unit that uses lasers for its attack. What are you eating, roller skates? And why is it chicken? My guess. Pretty good guess, I think. Ah, mac and chicken. That's what you meant to say. Ironically enough, not how I came up with Micken, but you know, Ahmed's got to eat too sometimes. All right, my weapon names are not good today, but that's okay. We still came up with 3 units. Let me actually give it an icon. It's not a copy of the other guy. And obviously when I say 3 units, I mean 1,000,000 units, because we're epic. So I can use 425 for this. Where's my man? There you go. Found my man. Manually selected my man. Man. You. Oh. There we go. Although I guess these 2 icons could change. One of them looks pretty significantly more threatening, actually. Let's do that. There we go. Okay. Well, there you go. I mean, I don't know what more you want from me. I managed to make 11 units and 4 structures in one stream, in one standing. Can't even call it sitting. It's standing. So there you go. Those are my concepts for the day, I think. Of course, I have to keep the work going as far as like figuring out tech progression, figuring out infrastructure, and all that stuff. So I think we'll probably be separating out the production facilities into ones that are more defensively oriented and more about like, you could say like conventional stuff, and then ones that are more aggressively oriented, more about agility, more about maybe high range, some sort of combination like that. But not immediately, I don't think. And the reason for that is that the ceremonial stuff that they do is going to require certain body count breakpoints before they can tech up. Which is kind of an experimental idea for an RTS, but the idea is that if you kill like X amount of units, you'll get a certain like, you know, you'll get access to your next tier of tech, basically. And if you lose X amount of units, that'll get access to a different tier of tech, like another tier of tech, but in a specific line, which is almost like a built-in comeback mechanic, I guess you could say. But they still have to be able to use the technology and spend money on it and all that stuff. So it's not exactly the same thing as just like handing them free shit. So I'm not 100% sure how it'll work out, honestly. The biggest concern I have is how do you make it readable for players? And I think you'll probably just have like, well, this solution doesn't really scale, but you could have like a global sound when a new tier is acquired. And I guess to help that scale with multiple Keltar enemies, you'd probably want to have like an in-game message that specifies which player. Which feels a little lame, but I'll think about how that might be possible. It might also not even be a global thing, and you just have to scout it, and it's obvious based on the visual read how close they are to getting to that point. Because then if you can scout it and it's visible, that's probably the most scalable solution and the most fair. That way you don't have to do some global shit to like instantly make everybody else aware of how far into the tech tree you are, where you know, they just scout you conventionally and they happen to see how close your ceremony is visually to completing. It would also be useful for the player who is playing as the Keltar and the allies of the Keltar, who could just look at their allies or their own tech structures and look at the ceremony as it's happening. So that would be pretty useful, I think. All right, I think that's probably going to be it for our stream, though. Another 2-hour one in the bag. These ones have been getting, you know, they've been stabilizing at around 2 hours, not just because I'm standing, but also because I've just been doing them pretty frequently, right? So you can tune in 2 days where I do some more of this shit if you're into RTS planning and design, or if you're just following in general. And then obviously, tomorrow, Veek7 over on his YouTube channel will be streaming more engine development. And we'll just have to see y'all there. So thanks for hanging. And remember, don't settle for less. We got some good-ass content coming. So stay tuned, and bye. Mwah. Also, join the Discord server.